Hey folks, Jack here. I've now been a PhD student for around 6 months, so we figured that now would be a pretty good time to jump back online and give you all an update on how it's going. Okay, so what have I actually been doing for the last 6 months? Well, the main thing I've been doing is my literature review. So what does that entail? I'm pretty much reading and writing anything I can get my hands on which is of relevance to the topic at hand. And just to give you a little reminder, my PhD is on the illegal eviction of people who live in private rented sector housing in Scotland. So I've been doing a lot of reading on kind of what you might expect, housing literature, government papers on housing, studies of, illegal eviction, and there's been a few done already. Things like that, to just kind of get a good base of what's gone before that is specifically linked to this area. And I've also been moving on a little bit because as part of a PhD, you could just work on all that stuff and then you might have a really good policy paper at the end of it, but because it's because you're going to be a doctor of philosophy, you really got to link all this in with some theoretical issues. So I've been looking at a lot of stuff on kind of criminology, because there's a lot of interesting stuff about kind of just general deviance. Landlords who evict people illegally are engaging in deviant behaviour. But also a lot of the times they're evicting people because those people were themselves engaging in deviant behaviour. So there's a kind of interesting dynamic at play there, which I've been trying to get all that together and link it into all the existing literature on illegal eviction in the private rented sector. And I've also been looking at some kind of regulatory theories, a little bit more kind of policy wonkish kind of thing. What's the point of regulation? What are the various types of regulation that go on? How do the regulations which exist link into kind of broader regulatory theory? So I've been working a lot on that, and it's actually been really interesting because you can get really wrapped up in your very specifically in your topic, but kind of broadening it out and learning new things is definitely interesting, because you're not just working on a PhD, you're still a student, you're still learning, so that's been really interesting, and I've really enjoyed learning more about all this, the kind of theoretical issues around illegal eviction in the private rented sector, and seeing how I can take all the stuff which is in books and articles which they don't have a title that says the theoretical whatever on illegal eviction, but more general stuff, and seeing how you can link all this into your specific topic. So that has actually been really interesting. The main thing that I've got in my mind right now is my annual review, which is coming up. I've got that in 2-3 months time, and what that consists of, the main thing that I got to do for my annual review is produce a really decent project proposal, because this is the kind of preparation year, and the kind of next academic year, or not really academic year, the next year in my kind of little timeline is when I'm actually going to have to go out and start doing all these research methods, putting them into practice, and finding out what is actually going on out there. So what does this consist of? So I've got to do a project proposal which has got to have a literature review. It's got to have a really good section on what is it you're actually going to go out there and do, a good methods section, and it's also got to have a justification for why your project is important. Why is it that this is important, and why should people care, and why should they let you continue with your PhD? So that's the main thing that I've got going on in my head right now. I'm kind of looking towards that. That's the next big milestone on the calendar, and also a little bit terrifyingly, as part of this review, you have to give a presentation to just staff at Urban Studies. They have these little sessions where PhD students doing their annual review give presentations, and anyone in the department can come along. So on the one hand, it'll be good to see what all of these experienced academics think of my project, but at the same time I'm a little bit nervous for all the difficult questions they're going to ask, so I got to get really prepared for that. But so that's going pretty well. But one area which I wanted to highlight, which I've kind of faced a few difficulties with, is really nailing down my methods and what I'm actually going to do in my PhD. So just to recap, one of the main, in fact the main thing I want to do for my methods is interview people who have experienced illegal eviction. And the way I was going to do this was we already established a partnership with this organisation that helps people who have experienced, among other things, housing problems and illegal eviction. So shortly after I started my PhD, I started volunteering with this organisation just to kind of see what it is they do, what's their client base like, just to, make sure that whenever I get started on my methods that, I'm not going in without knowing what, they really do. So making sure I would go in with a real good idea of what's going on. And that actually turned out to be a really good idea, because if I hadn't done that, then I probably wouldn't have appreciated that 90+% of their clientele really don't speak any English at all, which is a real challenge for when you want to do qualitative interviews. Even if you had a whole lot of money and you could employ translators, etc., I think you would probably still face a lot of issues with the quality of the qualitative data you would get. The interviews weren't some kind of sideline method that I was using to enhance my PhD, and this was the main thing, and it turned out it wasn't going to work. So that was a big blow. And so it really got me down. It definitely got me down, because I was worried the whole thing was just going to collapse. I suppose one of the things that I was aware of is that no one actually has to collaborate with you on your PhD. I was in the fortunate position that I had this partnership established with this other organisation, and I think we're still really going to be able to work together. I think we're going to be able to get a lot of work done together, and they're still really keen to work on the project. But just for this kind of main bulk of interviews, I needed to go out and establish a new link with another organisation. And there's not that many organisations who could help with this kind of project working in Scotland, and it would be very possible in the space of 2 weeks to send off an email to all of them and for them all to come back and say no, which would be a major problem for the PhD. But fortunately, I've started going around these organisations, sending them off individual emails, and the response has actually been pretty positive. So I just want to talk a little bit about the best ways to approach organisations and how you can help them and how you can get them to help you. So, you could send off a whole load of emails and say, hello, I'm a PhD student, I'm doing this research, please can you give me access to all your clients, all your case files, and please let me know as soon as possible, thank you. That's really not going to get you anywhere, because you've got to be able to offer them something in return. But what can you offer them in return as a PhD student? Well, let's say you're approaching local authorities. One of their main interests is in cutting down homelessness in their areas. So if you can go up to them and say, well, I'm doing this research on unlawful eviction in the private rented sector, and I think this could be a major contributing factor to homelessness. And what I want to do is I want to identify the issues which are preventing us taking care of unlawful eviction. And one of the things I want to figure out is how we can cut down the number of unlawful evictions that take place. They're probably going to be quite interested in that, because hopefully they'll be hoping that you can help them cut down the number of homelessness cases that come through their doors, which would be a major advantage to them. And also, in Scotland, there's a number of organisations who have housing and homelessness advice as one of their core remits, kind of charitable organisations. And they often have lobbying arms. So, you can go up to them with a similar set of justifications as you would go up to a local authority and say, I want to identify how we can cut down on homelessness. But you can also say, I know you're interested in lobbying, and, basically, I'm a free researcher, I'm going to be producing a thesis at the end of this, but hopefully, you might be interested in taking this research and using it in your, discussions with government on improving housing. So there are definitely ways that you can get people on board. No one has to help you, but actually I found that people are surprisingly willing to help, which is really nice. And I definitely have a lot more faith in people now. So overall, PhD is going pretty well. The next big milestone is the annual review. So with a bit of luck, I'll get through that in one piece, and I will be back in a few months' time to let you know how I'm getting on. But till then, good luck in your PhDs, good luck in your master's degrees, whatever you're doing. Good luck in your PhD applications, and I'll hopefully see you soon.